This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, a special edition of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, COVID-19, Fear or Wisdom. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello, and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host, and I am at home today recording, and I'm with my producer.
Hey, everybody, this is Dave Croft. I hope that you are doing okay today. I am at 818 Studios. You are at RCA Studios? I don't know.
That's right.
Just at your place.
I've got to be careful with RCA Studios.
Yeah, I
It's
suppose
probably
that's right.
breaking some law. Yes, I am at my home in Orlando because we are very mindful of keeping each other safe and our families safe from the thing that has our attention, COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus. And we wanted to do this special show just to lift you up, to remind us all of the truth and that God is here, in the midst of all of this. So, I'm recording from home. Because as you know, if you're a regular listener, there are elderly parents at Dave's.
And you've been doing a ton of traveling to New York
And I've been
City and
traveling.
Virginia.
Yes, and part of the deal with this virus that's so scary and dangerous is that it's, you could be a carrier and not know it. Of course, nobody thinks they are. I don't think I am, but I wouldn't have any way of knowing that at the moment, although I have no symptoms. In an effort to keep everyone at your house safe, I decided to stay home. And luckily, with the age we find ourselves in, it doesn't stop us bringing you spiritual support. And we're really, really happy about that.
That's right. So this episode is kind of a special episode because, it's no secret. We record episodes, ahead of time and everything. But we're going to be putting this in the podcast feed moving forward. And
Yes.
we just thought it was really important to kind of leapfrog over what we had intended to put out.
Yeah. And the title of the show today is Fear or Wisdom. Fear or wisdom.
Yeah, that's so needed right now.
It's a big topic because there is a lot of fear right now. But I would say what really we're experiencing and calling fear is terror. We're experiencing panic and fear, so often at our services. And as a matter of fact, in the month of May, I'm going to do a series called 30 Days of Fearless Living. The kind of fear we're often talking about overcoming is the kind of fear that is paralyzing and we don't know what to do, the kind of fear that is based on false evidence. And we often say fear is false evidence appearing real. So for many spiritual students, what I've noticed it online. I've noticed other ministers, saying it as well. It seems like we're in fear because you cancel services. So I guess that means Disney's in fear and the NCAA is in fear. And, I think we want to just pull back from that a little bit and see what are we really saying. And Dave, I want you to look up, if you haven't already, because we talked about it a little bit earlier, the definition of fear as we know it from our dictionary.
All right, the definition of fear. Fear, noun. An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat.
Now, yes, that to me is a form of fear that helps us. And you've heard me say before, healthy fear is I don't cross out into a busy intersection when cars are coming.
I wear my motorcycle helmet when I ride my bike.
Exactly. I was talking with Alan Harris. Alan is one of our members, and he's also the head of the EOC, which is Emergency Operations Center for Seminole County. It's a very important position. He's responsible for a lot of people. And, I said, many people are asking me, is your decision in fear? And, you know, um, if I'm using this definition, I would say, yes, it is in fear of what damage it could do to the most vulnerable of our community. Is it irrational and am I in panic and terror? The answer is no. I'm not. And the example I use for him is, if I said, and you can think of it too in the form of a child. If you said, if you saw your child about to cross the street, what would you say? Especially if they were not holding your hand and there were cars coming, you would say, no, don't. If you as an adult were standing at an express at the on the shoulder of an expressway and you saw cars speeding by, would you step out in the road and say, I'm not afraid? Well, of course not. You would protect yourself. You would look both ways. You would even know this is an expressway. This is not a good place, to cross into. And so, fear, when it is based on facts and evidence, we want to pay attention. Otherwise, we could get hurt.
Yeah, I've seen some people, in social media kind of saying, hey, it's only got like 0.02 mortality, and most people, 99.7% of the population will just have mild flu-like symptoms and all that. And I get that. But as someone who lives with elderly, my in-laws, one of
Yes.
whom is quite literally the bullseye target of the person who should be most concerned. We're talking about, chronic
Yes.
illness and,
Mhm.
and a compromised immune system. This is
Mhm.
why you're not at my house right now. It's why you're not at 818 Studios. Not because I'm afraid I'll get the corona or whatever. It's not me I'm worried about. You're
No.
not at Studio RCA because of you
Right.
worried. I'm not worried about getting sick. I don't want Larry, because if
That's
who
right.
he is exceedingly susceptible, like especially like flu and stuff like that, he would go down hard and life-threateningly hard,
Life-threateningly
and
hard.
it's a
Exactly. And so,
no-brainer.
the attitude seems to be, well, if I'm young and fine, then it's okay. But the problem is we are not an island. We are interconnected. And so, our teaching is so powerful about our interconnectedness. And as long as we're talking about love and you know, singing the peace song, let there be peace on earth, it's real convenient then to talk about oneness. But when people are losing jobs, when there's fear of getting sick, suddenly it's like, well, I can do whatever I want. It's like, well, what about that oneness thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Already today, there's been a couple of errands I would really like to do. I'm not doing them
yeah.
because I realize I'm connected to the greater whole, and that just being in a physical environment with other people right now, after having traveled recently, I could be putting somebody at risk. Maybe not the person I see, but then they go home to a friend or a relative or whatever. Like in your case, Dave, this becomes very personal very
You
quickly.
touch a coffee cup, and
That's it.
then Larry picks it up, and then there it
That's right.
is. And it's not in panic, right? We're we're
It
we're being
isn't.
smart
No.
about it. Larry's, not in a bubble and wearing a hazmat suit or anything like that. But we're just being smart. And for us, this is a way to continue doing what we're doing and being smart about it. But you mentioned the economic impact. I've personally been economically
Oh, yes.
impacted just from canceled gigs.
Mhm.
Not to mention, it's no secret I have music that gets played on the NCAA tournament, PGA
Right.
Tour golf, Masters tournament. All three
Right.
of those, three of the
Right.
biggest
Right.
broadcasts, those have all been postponed or canceled. And
Mhm.
so a year from now, I will still be feeling the economic impact of this from just, not having music that gets on air, that pays royalties, that pays my bills. It's not just, I'm not buying yachts with this, I'm paying my mortgage.
And supporting your wife's
Yep,
parents.
absolutely. Yep.
Yes, yes, exactly. So, yeah, so I want us to all kind of, remember, like you're saying, Dave, we're all going to be impacted in ways that we don't even know
Hmm.
yet. And I think a couple of things that have been so frustrating for so many about this situation is that um, many of us don't trust the government because our president has given us misleading guidance and
Yeah.
information. I think that our news media tends to sensationalize. And so, everything is an emergency. So it's hard for the general public to know what is the real emergency. And so we've all become, I won't say all, many of us. And at the beginning of this, I will be honest, I was like, is this too big of a deal? And then I heard from a few concerned people at church. And, for 2 weeks now, we haven't been hugging or shaking hands and extra sanitizing way before any other community I've heard about.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were tried to be, real proactive at the beginning, even though I was like, is this too much? Well, once I started reaching out to people and I thought, the Center for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, the experts are saying this is nothing like the regular flu, and then the reports out of China. So, I think because we knew about China earlier and because our leaders, we don't really trust our leaders, it was hard to know where to land on
Yeah.
this issue.
Which is why everybody bought all the toilet paper in the country. Everybody
Exactly.
panicked
Exactly.
selling, and it looks like the apocalypse. That you go one row over, and it's like nothing happened, but the toilet paper aisle is wiped out.
Right, exactly. And so it's a balance for all of us to really realize what are wise decisions and what is this overriding fear. And I think all of us at one time or another, in the last week have had moments of fear, and it will probably increase at times. But what we want to do is consistently recenter by by checking in with ourselves, by doing our meditation. And I was want to mention that we're going to record today a meditation for health where we're going through, blessing our bodies so that we can be very mindful of sending our bodies good energy, because we know stress is not helpful. We know stress is the opposite of healing. And it's possible to um, to recenter and not stay in this state of kind of this subtext of terror that tends to want to whip up. And
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes me and Shannon have had to be really careful about not kind of going into that, like, panic spiral,
right.
especially a couple of days ago when everything started canceling, and it started with, like, UCF, the University of Central Florida, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Hey, we're going to online only." And we're like, "Whoa, that's a big deal." And then you hear about the NBA, and whoa. And now, like, all of the major sports,
Hmm.
NHL, Major League Baseball, colleges,
I mean,
Rollins College is going online only until the end of the term. Full Sail just yesterday, or last week, I guess. Uh, we're going online only until
yeah.
through the end of April.
Hmm.
And so when that starts happening, and I'm talking to Shannon, and we're like, oh wow, this is. Ooh. And that's what can I do? I'm just asking you, as from one person, to my spiritual leader. What can I do to help kind of walk off that ledge when I start feeling like, hey, fear of missing out? Maybe I should go buy some toilet paper. And I admit, I've done that. I've taken. I know exactly how many rolls of toilet paper we have in the house. Thankfully, we're all good. Worst comes to worst, I'll hop in the shower, I guess. But what can I do to kind of step back from that little panic moment? How does fear kind of flip into that, and what can we do to walk back from that?
Well, it's a great question because I think the fear turns into panic, in a millisecond. Um, and one of the things that helps me the most is putting on music that really calms my soul, and to begin talking to myself and affirming my connection to God. Um, I think I was mentioning to Dave, we're going to have this group. We're going to interview East Forest. It's a group that their music is very etheric and it's very soul and spirit connected. And so there's also an Asian cellist I listen to as well. I do my Tai Chi to it.
Hey,
And
I wonder if would you be interested in putting together like calming a calming
sure,
Spotify playlist?
I'll be happy to. As a matter of fact, I've got one I'm working on right now for myself. So yes, I will share that. I will definitely
Yeah,
share
we'll put a
that.
link to that in the show
And
notes.
we'd love to have you join in. And it's like also, so I said listening to music is number one, because music somehow just starts to change your feeling nature. It's like for me, music goes right to my heart right away and gets me out of my head. When I'm really stuck in the mind, thinking, that's when the panic kind of takes over. But when I move into feeling, I can still know what's mine to do and be really grounded and still make good decisions, but feel, at peace. And the other thing I'm really doing is still every morning, I check in with how I feel. And it's been very helpful because if there's a feeling of, I feel afraid, I have the coronavirus, you write that down.
Mm.
And the reason you do that is because if you pretend you're not afraid, that's when the fear starts to take over. And I've begun calling that, feeding the beast, because every time you pretend it isn't there, you're feeding the fear more. You're
Right.
acting like you're afraid of the fear itself, and I wrote that email a couple of weeks ago about, FDR's quote, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Fear kind of expands on itself, really exponentially, as we don't name it. But as soon as you name it, it's like, oh, I'm afraid. And then you go, okay, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Okay, I said it. And then you go, take a deep breath. And then you say, I feel connected to God. It is a feeling that can pass. It doesn't have to like take over. And I think in general in our culture, we don't know how to hold our fear. Since 9/11, when I know, Dave, we have a little bit of a different take on this. When the president said go shopping, I always come back to that. When the president said go shopping, it was like, don't be afraid, we'll handle this. So we learned to check out. And what do we do with our phones all day? Check out.
Yeah.
Look at Facebook to see how afraid everybody is. Right. So the fear piece is really when we're stuck in the mind. So the daily check-in that I, am always proposing to see how am I feeling is very helpful in a time like this, because it helps you get out of panic, because you see that you are more than your fear. Let's say that you write, I am afraid of the coronavirus. The next step, or I feel afraid of the coronavirus. The next step might be, I feel loved by my family.
Mm.
I feel supported by God. I feel grateful that I could buy the groceries I needed. There's more to you than the fear. But friends, listen to me on this. When you pretend it is not there, it is running your show, right? Your reactions, your conversations. Sometimes you just have to admit, I'm afraid. That's called surrender. There's nothing wrong with that. We surrender and go, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm afraid. And God goes, I'm right here.
Mm.
That's when we make room for God, when we admit what's happening. So just acknowledging that the fear is there is really important, instead of pretending it isn't. And I'm going to give you an example of that. I had this friend in school, and I just talked about this. I was at a keynote at a women's conference recently, and they all loved it, because we all, as women, as female leaders, have fears, right? Always. And so that pop up. And so I was telling him about this friend of mine who was learning how to speak. And as she was learning how to speak, she was very, very nervous. And so is nervous so much that things were like literally like shaking. And she
Mm.
wore all those goddessy fabrics that were very shimmery. So when her leg would shake, the whole dress she had on just looked like, it was on a vibrating machine. She was so nervous. And so I said to her, how I said, your talk was good. How are you dealing with your nervousness? And she said, because that's, what we're supposed to do as students. She said, I just say to myself, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I said, well, is it working? And she goes, no. And I was like, well, that's an unhealthy form of denial. That's like trying to affirm away something you're not naming. And I said, what if you said, I said, here's an idea if you're open to feedback. And she said, yes. And we were giving feedback at the moment. That was our job as other students. And I said, what if you said, this fear has no power over me. I speak with calm and poise. I am full of grace and joy. things like that, that where you acknowledge the fear, but then say it doesn't have power, and then say what you're going to put in its place. And I mean, in a month's time, her speaking completely changed. And she wasn't trying to say, I'm not afraid, when everything in her body was telling her, sweaty palms, shaky. And, but when she just said, this fear, in other words, I see you, this fear has no power over me. I am full of calm and poise. It was something like, I speak with calm, poise, and grace. It was something like that. I'm filled with God's grace and love. And it's like, okay, her consciousness could believe that, and so I think we so often think to feel fear and to name it means we're weak spiritually, that we're not evolved. And the opposite is true. When we can name the fear, we know we're more powerful. We know we're bigger than the fear, and that we can hold, the space of possibility for healing in and through the fear, because to be afraid from time to time is human.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, let's go ahead and take a break now. We will be back in just a few moments. And thank you so much for being with us today, friends.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. We'd also like to extend our special thanks to Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello, friends, and welcome back. I'm going to circle back to some of the strategies. We started the first half off really focusing in on the fear and what that means, and then we were talking about the difference really between healthy fear and unhealthy fear. That turns into panic and hysteria and terror and all those things. So we wanted to start out the second half with talking about wisdom, and we're going to circle back though to the strategies because we've already mentioned a couple, but we'll circle back because I want to get to the wisdom piece. So Dave, give us the the all-knowing Google definition.
The definition of wisdom, and there are a couple. All right, wisdom.
Yeah.
The quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. The quality of being wise.
Very good. Very good. So in other words, we're wise when we use our experience and knowledge to make good decisions.
I'm sorry, did you want there are two others that I see
here. Read them. Sorry, I
All
thought
right.
You were going to. And then you did,
I thought I was going to, and then I was like, are these? But let's do it. All right, so
All right, go ahead.
The soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. I think that's where we are right now. And then the body of knowledge and principles that develops within a let me start that again. The body of knowledge and principles that develops within a specified society or period.
Yes, very good. And I was really attracted to the word, I'll call it sagacity, I think is the way I think it's,
I don't
sagacity.
think I've ever heard that word
which is
before.
the quality of being sagacious, which is actually about wisdom. And I'll give you an example. About a sagacious person, it says, is to describe someone who is wise and insightful, like an advisor to the president or a Supreme Court justice, someone like an inspirational leader or an expert in a field who seeks knowledge and has foresight can be described as sagacious.
And
In other words, sage like.
yeah, the
Yeah,
root word there is
sagacious.
sage.
And so
Yeah.
that's what we seek to do. And part of the wisdom that we are operating from at CCU is the knowledge of our connection with God and the knowledge that we are all souls and that we are all one. The main issue I see in our culture and society, and even in the world as a whole, is the disconnection from our spiritual path and the disconnection from the awareness that we are all one, which means every decision, everything we do, everything we say impacts another. We know it's true on the energetic level. We're seeing it in the outward way now with a negativity with a virus, but what we're seeing that way is actually true spiritually and even emotionally. That anything that's felt, anything that's said, the way we observe things, the way we talk about things and people and situations, it's felt globally. So in our efforts at CCU to protect everyone, like I say, for 2 weeks, we were sanitizing and already beginning what now is a thing called social distancing, which I'd never even heard of
Yeah, I'd never heard that
until
term
a week
before.
ago.
Right.
And now I read it every other word. So I'm bringing that up because I was reading the news and aware and looking at what the CDC said. And then after talking with a couple members, I was like, this is from God. We need to do something. Well, as long as I think I know it all, and as long as I think, well, I'm going to keep these doors open no matter what anybody says, those are clearly egoic statements. You know,
Mm-hmm.
those are clearly like, I know more. And so what I was doing is listening to both our community and the experts, and they were saying the same things, very smart, wise, generous individuals who said, are you going to do anything different on Sunday? And I was like, no, what do you mean? Oh, yes. With that, yes. I said, yes, I'm not going to do a meet and greet at all. And they were like, great, then I'll be there. Somebody very concerned for not only their health, but the health of others. They had recently traveled as well. So, and it was more than one person, by the way, there were several. So I think wisdom is when we take all the knowledge available and make the best decision possible, but also knowing that our faith is really informing that decision.
Right.
Yeah. I just talked with the sibling who I love dearly, and they are having a service at their church tomorrow, and their pastor feels really strongly about it. And I said, well, please be careful because his wife has been ill. I said, please be careful. Do not touch anyone or anything because you don't want to bring anything back home, So I think wisdom is when we make the best decision possible, giving all the information. And also this, like releasing this desire to be right and instead to be willing to be educated. Wisdom is from, we've talked about the wisdom of the ages. And there's even, it's in Proverbs, I can't remember the scripture right now, about, don't ignore what's happening. You can't ignore what's happening and remain and remain as if something is not happening. And I'll find that, Dave, and send it to you, that Proverbs scripture.
Yeah, it's Proverbs 8:33.
What does it say?
Listen to my instruction and be wise. Do not disregard it.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
the excellence of
exactly.
wisdom. So the verse before it is, now therefore, my sons, listen to me, for blessed are those who keep my ways. Listen to instruction and be wise. Do not ignore it. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my doors, waiting at the posts of my doorway.
Yes. And the other piece, I think, in this time, and this goes for anything really, that to really realize our oneness. And here's what I mean. If you were brought up in America and you're white, you were really taught to only think of yourself and your own immediate family. If you were brought up in Puerto Rico, if you grew up Native American, if you grew up African American, in general, you know that you represent a people.
Right.
Right. And so, and what I mean by that is the idea that, like I said earlier, that we're just one person and we don't, if I'm fine, why do I need to worry? Um, I have been responsible for a congregation and groups of people for so long, either as a teacher, as a minister, as a youth director, that I can't imagine what it would be like to think like most people seem to be thinking right now, which is, well, if I'm fine, why doesn't everybody get over it? And I'm not really impacted. Like, I see people on Facebook saying, how many of you are directly impacted by the coronavirus? The obvious answer is going to be within 2 weeks, every person on the planet in some
In
way
some way,
is
that's right.
impacted. We're impacted by the fear. We're impacted by, So what I'm saying is, if we can move instead into wisdom and see that not only am I responsible for myself, but I am a responsible part of a greater whole. You know, planet Earth for one, but my own community, the community where I work, the community where I live, and I want to do my part to keep everyone safe. In the old days, for some reason I'm picture like a funny teacher in the 50s going, "Be a good citizen." But that's really what we're talking about. And in the last, couple of 3 decades, what we learned is get all you can. Well, the problem with that is we are all connected. If you're getting all you can, you may be getting somebody else's.
Yeah.
You may be impacting somebody else negatively. And so wisdom says, I'm going to pull back from that and see, how am I a part of the greater whole? So,
Yeah, being able to kind of oh, what's the word I'm looking for?
mhm.
Empathize with those outside of what your situation is, and being able to put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, here's somebody who might be more adversely affected, and can I imagine how they might be feeling right now? Can I imagine somebody with a compromised immune system? Can I imagine what that would feel like to go to church and let's have a meet and greet time? Let's all shake hands. And I'm sitting here thinking, hey, I'm healthy. I'm 46 years old and I barely get sick. But can I put myself in the mindset and in the heart of someone who has a compromised immune system, and what that would be like,
Yes.
and what.
Yes. And the other thing, someone just said to me, uh, last night, a very dear friend, he said, life has slipped up on me. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, I was thinking of older people as somebody other than me. He said, but in fact, that's me. And I have some other underlying issues
Mm,
that put me at risk. And I was not even thinking of that. I mean, that's what he said. So I want to take it even deeper. Everything we're saying is important, but spiritually, I want to talk about real deep now. Stay with me. We are in the season of Lent, where we are supposed to be fasting from negativity. I talked about in an email several weeks ago that I was doing my best to fast from low level thoughts
mm,
and move into high level thoughts. And the season of Lent is really about, well, in the early days, it was when um, Jesus basically went into the desert, for 40 days. That's basically, and it began with Ash Wednesday. And so it's in a season of reflection and for preparation. And so um, the other thing I see kind of missing, and it's very concerning to me from everything I see on the internet, is that there's so much going outward in worry. There's no going inward in reflection, in taking stock of your soul right now. And I think it's definitely being asked of us. Definitely being
mm.
asked of us. How are you dealing with um, the condition of your soul? One of the reasons there's so much fear is because we don't know our own soul. So the time is now to reflect, to spend time with planet Earth, get your hands in the dirt if you can. It's time to um, turn everything off. I know the temptation now is to binge Netflix and be on your phone at the same time all day. But I really want to encourage you to even if you do that at times, to please take breaks and move into quiet, move into silence, because that's where you're ultimately going to find the peace that you need. Yeah.
Mm.
I think there will be people who say, God did this to us. And there will be people who have said, wait, I forgot. Somebody said the Democrats did it too, I think.
Right. Yeah.
What I think is that life is happening on a grand scale, and that we live in a global economy and we are more connected than we know. And I also know God will use everything to bring us closer to our soul and to what matters most. So, my encouragement to you is all the things we mentioned. I will put out a playlist for you to help kind of calm the mind and, get the body, recentered. And the other piece of that will be time for you um, checking in with yourself, literally sitting down with a pen and piece of paper and checking in with how you feel, acknowledging it, and realizing you're bigger than any feeling. You have a feeling, you are not your feeling. You are God in expression, right? So just if I have fear, I feel fear. I feel afraid. I feel happy. I feel sad. And then remember at the end of that feeling check in to really affirm all is well. God is with me. And as I love to say always, God is my source. God is my source. No matter what is happening, I know God is with me. God is my source. God is my source. God is my source. I am blessed. I am supported. I am loved. God is here. I am forgiven and I forgive. I am forgiven and I forgive. Right? So really get clear with yourself and let yourself just write. You'll be surprised what your soul wants to say to you. And then the other thing I would say is really reach out to people that you care about right now. And rather than talking how bad everything is, just give a moment of gratitude and tell them how grateful you are. After traveling and being on an airplane, it was so great to talk to my sister. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so great to talk to you. I was feeling so tired. And then I heard your voice and it's like, all is well. So we need to know we're connected to other people. And as much as we love email and Facebook, there's nothing like a phone call and hearing somebody you love on the other end of the line. So I really want to encourage you as well to do that. Finally, and one of the most important things I do is time outside. I am a little tired from all the travel. In the last 3 weeks, I think, or 2 weeks, I've been in 3 states.
Oh my gosh.
I've never traveled that much. I don't think in my life. And I was supposed to take one other time away next week to go see my mom. But I can't, and I wasn't going to anyway because the nursing home is no longer accepting visitors. And I was already not going to go. I already said to my family, as much as I want to come, I don't want to infect anyone there. And so anyway, long story short, I will be home. I'm grateful to be home. And this morning, as I did my Tai Chi and then I went for a walk, it felt so good. And I felt so connected. The wind was blowing, the sun was shining. I heard birds chirping. It's like, yes, this is normal. This is life. This is the universe supporting me. So I had to get out of my house to do that. Now, luckily, I live close enough to a park that I can do that. You may or may not have a backyard, but maybe you can go outside, put your feet in the grass, get regrounded to planet Earth and know that God is with you. Open some windows, get some fresh air, connect with what is real instead of everything in your mind that's imagined. And in your work, I want to really reiterate, in your soul work, you have a profound opportunity right now. You can't go anywhere. You have to be home. This is a time of rest. It's a time of a preparation for the new. And even though we're all saying, and we even said, we won't know the negative impacts at this time, you also don't know the positive. I am claiming something good is going to come out of this time for us as individuals and for us collectively, because we are realizing we are no longer separate. All we're seeing now is the spread of a virus, but there's something more happening here. And I'm claiming I don't see it all yet, but I know we will. I know I will. And I know we're going to be in this together, moving forward. So my encouragement to you is really to continue to center, to do your work, and to be a blessing. If you can support those around you, do it. Reach out to people you love, do it. Write down those feelings, do it. Claim you're good, do it. Listen to that music, do it. It is our responsibility as souls to move forward on the journey and to really take responsibility for ourselves and also for the world. So blessings on the journey, dear friend. No, we lift you up. We are praying with you and for you. And we are doing all we can to support you through this podcast. Again, we will put out a meditation that it'll be called a meditation for health, where we will be blessing our bodies. So we encourage you to do this on your own, dear friend. Join with us whenever you can. And please listen to old shows. Anything that supports you, be about that right now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch base. We've talked about how CCU Orlando is no longer having morning services in person. However, we are doing live stream services. So you can still get a message and have opportunity there at christchurchunity.net. Also, subscribe to the CCU YouTube channel, and if you click that notification bell, then every time they go live, every Sunday morning we go live, but now especially since we're not having in-person services, you'll get a notification. We'll have a link to that in our show notes. The first service, I guess, would have been yesterday, the first live stream service. And correct. So it's not like we're, CCU isn't shutting their doors and just telling everybody to work it out yourself. We're still serving the community, still supporting your soul and your soul's growth through YouTube and a live stream video instead of in person.
Yep. So thank you, dear friend. We bless you on the journey. And please know we're holding all of you in prayer. And we're holding our world in prayer, knowing we are one. So we bless you and we thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, Shayla Mount, Dorothy Moore, Aggie Payton, and Anna Evans. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.